My name is Jamin Goecker. I'm an associate real estate broker in the state of Alaska, and my mission is to help you to build an intentional and significant legacy for yourself and your family by coaching you in real estate. And today, we're going to be talking about one of the largest real estate markets in the entire state of Alaska, and that is the MatSu Valley. Now, the MatSu includes a pretty big area. The two biggest epicenters for where people actually live is going to be Wasilla and it's going to be Palmer. And we're going to be jumping into that and really dissecting the residential, the condo, and the multifamily market. Before we get started, though, give this video a like, subscribe, do all the good stuff, and let's go ahead and jump into today's video. Now, the first thing that we see is that the number of properties available on the market in the residential class is actually down from where it was the year before, because this time last year there was about 440 properties available. Now it's about 370. So you see a pretty sharp decrease in the number of properties that are available, and this is actually in line with what we saw in the previous month. So looking at the month of May, the last month where we had the most complete information, the year before it was about 370 and it went down to about 312. So you do see about the same number of properties decreasing, and this is a break from what we saw in the trend previously in the year, because previously we were actually seeing an increase of about 70 to 80 properties more per year than what we saw currently. And then back in April, we see that it actually came back to approximately what we had the year before. And then for the month of May and June, it's just, the number of properties available has just kind of gone down, which is not really what most people assume would happen, but that's really how it goes. I know everyone says, the most number of houses are going to close around that June and July timeframe, and it's because people are usually buying around that April and May timeframe. So there's just less options in the market right now than what we've seen in previous years. Not surprisingly, we see the total number of properties actually selling in the MatSu Valley took a pretty sharp dip, because it was about 260 the year before, and now it's down to about 170. So that is a pretty sharp dip. As a matter of fact, we've seen kind of a drop in the number of properties that have actually sold year to date, really throughout the entire year. That's definitely the sharpest dip that we've seen, because this time last year in June, we saw that spike up to about that 270. And then, just like that, we're all the way down to about 160 or so. And that's the biggest drop we've seen for the entire year up to this point. Last but not least, we see that the average sold price went from about $383,000 this time last year to about $395,000 this year, which is about a 3.3% increase for the average sold price. And yeah, it doesn't sound like very much, 3.3. Historically, though, that's doing pretty good, because back in 2016, it was about a 3.7, 3.2 increase. And then, we were seeing about 2.5, 1.3. 2020, it shot up to about 10%. 2021, it was about 15%. This time last year, it was about a 10% increase again. And this year, we're starting to go back to more of a normal rate of appreciation. I suspect we're actually going to see that rate of increase at a much faster rate in the month, as soon as we get next month's full data in for the month of July, because most of the homes that are going to be sold, they're going to be during the months of June and July. And this is really where we're going to start seeing those prices going up, because that's when there's the most competition. And of course, that's when the prices are going to go up. Now, exactly what is driving the prices up? Because this really boggles the mind of a lot of people, that we're expecting the interest rates to go up and prices to be forced to come down because people can't afford it. Well, what we're seeing is that ultimately supply and demand is going to win any argument that's out there. And what we see right now in supply and demand is that the number of properties that are available is low. Okay, this is probably the lowest it's ever been in recent history. And the reason for that is that we have all these people that refinanced or purchased their homes a couple of years ago, and now they're sitting on like 2 point something or 3 point interest rates on their mortgages. And so why would they move then when they have a mortgage with that low of an interest rate, when doing so is going to mean that they now have to pay like a 6 or 7% interest rate? It doesn't make sense, and that's why they're not moving. Whereas, normally in the same situation they would, but now they've got the low interest rate, they're not going anywhere, and they're just going to figure out how to be landlords instead. Let's talk about condos in MatSu Valley real quick. I've said this many times before. Condos are really not the hot commodity in the MatSu Valley. That's really not why most people move out here. But I suspect this is going to become a growing section of the real estate market, and so we're going to cover it. But this time last year, we saw that there were 4 condos available, and this year it's 6. So there you go. If you're wanting to buy a condo, your options have never been better. For the total number of condos that have actually sold, this time last year it was 5, and this year it is 1. So yeah, once we start getting into that small of a sample size, your guess is as good as mine. Now, the year-to-date price this time last year was about $268,000, and this year it's about $222,000, which means we've seen about a 17.7% decrease in the average sold price for condos. Now, the thing to keep in mind is once you have a sample size that it's this small, like you're going to see like these big swings in the numbers like that, and that's just to be expected. I would expect across the board, had that same condo sold in a previous year, it would have been probably significantly less because we see more and more people trying to crowd into condos now that they look like the more affordable option, because it's a little bit easier to make a 6% interest rate payment on a mortgage at a condo than it is for 6% in a single family home. So for that reason, you're probably going to see more people trying to get into those. But yeah, once you have a sample size this small, it's really hard to compare them because we don't know for sure like what kind of condos they exactly were. The year before, there was actually a 40% increase. So as you see, there's just such a swing in the values there when we have a small sample size. We're going to jump into the multi-market in just a second. Before we do, though, just want to let you guys know we're actually going to be hosting monthly meetups, and a calendar link about the stuff that we're going to be doing and the dates and all the details are going to be in the description section down below. Make sure to go check that out. But what the meetups are is they are just very, very simple, go for a hike here, go to a music festival there kind of things. And it's really designed to be a way for you to plug into a community and really meet a lot of people. And most of the people that show up are new to the state as well. And so if you're looking for a good way to kind of meet people who are like you in the same boat and having the same experiences, this is going to be a great opportunity for you. So just wanted to make sure that was on your radar. And obviously, we do have the podcast called the Alaskan Journey Podcast, where we interview people who have recently moved up here. So go check that out in the description section down below. For the meetups, do not feel like you have to be looking for a house or anything like that. You're welcome whether you're renting or whether you bought like a $2 million house just the other day. You're welcome just as much either way. Now, let's go ahead and finish up today's market update looking at the multifamily section. Now, looking at the multifamily market, this is this is interesting, okay? Because this time last year, we had 29 properties that were available on the market, and they were in pretty high demand. Interest rates were still fairly low. People were still freaking out at the time and thought the interest rates we had then was just the worst thing ever. And yeah, we see the inventory is continuing to go up to about 39 or 40 multifamily properties that are currently available on the market. And this has really been the trend we've seen for the entire year, going all the way back to January. But we have consistently stayed about 28 to about 39 multifamily properties that are available on the market. They are selling, and if you can find a property that's priced correctly, they're still going to go. But having higher interest rate definitely does put a decreased value on these multifamily properties, because at the end of the day, for multifamily, it is all just about how the numbers pencil out. And if you have a really high monthly payment because the interest rate is high, it's going to start decreasing the value of what you can actually get for these properties. Next thing we're seeing is that this time last year, there were 15 multifamily properties sold for the month of June, and this year it's 11. So we do see a slight decrease in the number of multifamily properties that are closing, and I think the big reason for that, again, is just because the interest rates are going up, and that is one of those few asset classes where we do see a direct impact for the demand based upon the interest rates. Last but not least, we see that the average sold price for multifamily year to date was about $494,000 this time last year, and now it's about $554,000, which means we are looking at about a 12.2% increase for the average sold price for multifamily properties in the MatSu Valley. Now, lots of surprises in multifamily. Really what we're seeing there is comparing apples to apples. These properties are still going to be going up in value, and the reason for that is this is a time of inflation, which means rents go up, which does make these properties valuable. And it's kind of being tempered as well with the interest rates going up on the mortgages. So in best case scenario, you bought a couple of years ago, you got a low mortgage, and now inflation is just causing the rents to go up and up and up, and you're doing pretty well with that. But it's obviously you can't go back in time and change anything if that's not what happened for you. Now let's go and talk a little bit for what all this means for you. Number one, as a buyer, don't give up. Don't just throw in the towel, because realistically, I'm not expecting to see this deadlock and the inventory available go away anytime soon. We have a lot of homes across the entire U.S. that is really locked up in the inventory, just because the interest rates were so low a couple of years ago and people have refinanced, or they bought a home for like a 2 point something or 3% interest rates. And so I'm really not anticipating that to really change anytime soon. It's going to take a long time for the market to pry those homes out of those homeowners' hands, just because, once you have a property with a 2% interest rate on it, there's no way you're letting it go for anything unless you absolutely have to. So I'm not expecting inventory to change anytime soon. We do see some new construction going on over in the MatSu Valley, but actually the new construction has pulled back quite a bit from what we saw in the previous year, just because they try to make sure that they don't flood the market with a ton of inventory, which in turn creates too much inventory, which in turn creates market disruption or even upheaval, I would say. So realistically, inventory options are not going to get any better anytime in the near future. There is competition if you find a good house. So if you find one, just be ready to compete and compete hard. If not, then there's some other types of properties we need to be looking at. And my buyers and I have had pretty good success lately, but we're also being very intentional and using the hand that we've been dealt. If you are a seller, not a whole lot of bad things that's going on here. Really, the worst thing is that if you only have one property, you're going to have to sell a property, which that's going to be great, and then you're going to have to go buy in this market too. That's really the only downside. If you're an investor, you just have to make sure all your numbers actually pencil out. But I've really gone on for a long time. Thanks for listening. Let me know if you have any questions. Reach out to me on my website or on my Facebook page down below, and we'll see you next time.